Today's shir, as Rabbi Karabkin usually has a format, I think that there's two parts to the shir. So, towards the second half or towards the end of the shir, I'd like to we'll open up some sidurim and we'll look at a couple paragraphs of Hallel to appreciate the Hallel that we're saying now for 8 days of Chanukah. At the beginning of the shir, we're going to study a handout, a Midrash about Chanukah, and I don't know if I gave out enough of them. Is there enough handouts? Okay. We don't have a Megillas Esther or any Megillah on Chanukah. There is something called Megillas Antioches or Megillas B'nei Chashmonai, and it's not from the writings of the Tanakh. It's not one of the Chamish Megillos. But it is very, very interesting, and it's been around for many years. What we're going to see today is a Midrash that's also been around for hundreds of years, written close to the time when these events happened, and it's going to give us a perspective on some of the events of Chanukah, not the entire story, but it will give us a perspective on some of the events, particularly on the situation that the religious Jews, the Jewish community, was faced with decrees from the Greeks not to observe mitzvos and not to have the special relationship with Hashem. I want to open with a story that my wife told me a couple days ago. It happened to her in the classroom with a boy that Nebuch, unfortunately, he was being picked on. And just running an afternoon program for 2 hours a day, taking over for somebody else who had a baby, my wife didn't realize that there's a lot of challenges in the classroom, even though she's done this before. But unfortunately, there's some situations where boys aren't behaving and actually bullying other students. So there was one boy who he wanted to boost his confidence and show that no one should start up with him, that he's secure. So when a boy came over to him to pick on him, this little boy, he is, let's say, 6 years old, maybe even younger, 5 years old. So what did he do? He takes out his father's business card with a picture of his father, and it says, "My father's really big," and he shows it to the fellow. So we're going to see that the wars and the battles that the Jewish people fought here was under the title Maccabee. What does Maccabee mean? So we're familiar with the acronym Maccabees, Mem, Chaf, Beis, Yod. So according to that version that it's spelled with a Chaf, so it's Mi Kamocha Ba'elim Hashem. Mem, Mi, Kamocha, Beis for Ba, Elim, and Yod is the beginning of the name of Hashem. So when the Maccabees, when they went out to fight, this was their slogan. The slogan was, "Who is like your strength, Hashem?" And it was not their own strength that they were waging war with, but it was the strength of Hashem. Okay? In one place, a number of places we see them praying, and in one place in the Midrash we see the following. Right, just before we begin, it says. Okay. 1 second. Following tefillah, and we find documented some of the tefillahs that they prayed before they went out to battle. And they said, Rabbi Shalom, Master of the world, Galoi v'yadua. Now this is not on your paper because this is a different medrash, but just an example of the prayer that the Maccabees offered during their battles. Galoi v'yadua, it is revealed and known in front of you, lefanecha. Shelo amadnu leilachem kenegdam ela bavur shimcha hagadol. Shelo yizbaze b'goyim. We're not fighting in front of the nations in order for our own honor, for our own freedom. It's for the name the sake of your great name, that it shouldn't be mizbaza, it shouldn't be disgraced in front of the nations. Okay, so we see how this was a Muhammad Hashem, we'll call it, that they were fighting with the strength of Hashem and for the sake of His great name. Okay, we're going to start now with this handout. I got one? Okay, there's 2 pages, so
Thank you.
there's the second page. Oh, you got it.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a sefer that I bought in Eretz Yisrael a number of years ago, and it's a collection of writings about Chanukah in Hebrew, and many of them are ancient texts, and some of them are analyzed, the historical events. This is called Megillas B'nei Hashmona'i. What we're going to study today is a Midrash that's just brought in here, brought inside the sefer. Okay, we'll start from where it says Ksiv. Okay, halfway down the page, and you have the picture. Okay, good. Ksiv Ko Amar Hashem Tzivakos. The pasuk in Yirmiyah says, "So says Hashem, the Master of the legions, Ashukim b'nei Yehuda b'nei Yisrael." The Jews of Yehuda and Yisrael are oppressed and will be ashuk means thrown down, pushed down. Ksiv Gayalim Chazak Hashem Tzivaka Shemai. The one who redeems them, the strength of Hashem Tzivaka is His name. Riv Yarivis Rivam. He will fight their battle for them. Leman Hargia Saaretz, so that the land can settle. The Hirgiz, the Yoshvei Bavel, and he will Hirgiz means to cause Rogez. Rogez is anger, and it's unsettling the Yoshvei Bavel, to those who inhabitants of Bavel, meaning those who caused trouble to the Jewish people. Here's the story that pasuk is prefacing. That at first the Jewish people were downtrodden and oppressed, and Hashem fights their fight and causes the land to settle. Amru, they said, the following is told: B'imei HaYevanim niskayim mikrazeh. In the days of the Greeks, this verse was fulfilled. She'arimu sod al Yisrael, that they came up with a sod, with a secret, with a plan against the Jewish people. Amru, they said, Bo'u nechadesh aleim gezerais. Let's go and make decrees against the Jewish people. Ad sheyivatu be'eloheihem v'yaminu b'avodah zarah shalanu. Until they will rebel against their own God and they will believe in our idols. That was the objective according to this Midrash. So, although many Jews were going to see, I believe it's brought even in this Midrash, terrible bloodshed that befell the Jewish people during this time as well, but it was within a spiritual framework that they wanted to take away this relationship that the Jewish people had with Hashem and get them that they should rebel. Okay? I'll just quote to you from another text that's brought here that brings the words of Antiochus himself, when he came to this again was a Megillah. It's not part of the writings of the Tanakh, but some call it Megillas Antiochus. And in there it says that in the 23rd year of his reign, this was the 213 years since the building of the second Beis Hamikdash, that this took place, that Antiochus decided that he wanted to conquer Yerushalayim. And he said to his officers, you know that there's a nation, the Jews, the Yehudim, in Yerushalayim, that are amongst us. They don't believe in our gods. They don't offer sacrifices to our idols. They don't observe our religion. And they leave the ways of the king to do their own ways. And here is a clincher. They're looking forward to the downfall of the kings and the rulers who are over them. and they say, when will we have our own Jewish king? The king, it says in parentheses here, the Mashiach, and he will rule over the sea and the dry land, and the whole world will be in our hands. So Antiochus said, this isn't good for us to have these people. He wanted to have a total reign over the entire kingdom, entire land. So come, he says, what are we going to do? Bo'u v'na'aleh alehem. Let's go on them, and we will take away from them the covenant that Hashem has with them. And here it says, Shabbos, Chodesh, and Milah. Now let's see, and then that was the idea that was pursued. And here you see in the words of Antiochus himself that this was the objective. The objective was the Jews feel that they have this special relationship with their God. And they think that really no one should reign over them. And they feel that they should be able to observe what they want to observe and be different. They didn't want them to have that. So Antiochus wanted that all the nations in his kingdom should blend in and they should become part of his kingdom. And here there's one that's sticking out that believes that they have this special relationship with their God that no matter what anyone tells them, they're holding on to. So here he tries to break them. And here is what it says in the Midrash, back again. Amdu, right after the underlined part. Amdu v'gazru. Kol ben Yisrael she'aisalei beriach masker lefaschai yidager b'cherev. Any Jew that makes a lock for his door will be stabbed with a sword. Your door had to be open. V'chol kach lama. What was the sense in this decree? Kedei sheyeh l'Yisrael kavod v'lo rishus. The Jewish people should have no honor, no dignity. Shekol beis bayish ein le deles, ein le kavod v'lo tznius. A house that has no door, it has no honor, it has no privacy. V'chol ha'roitze likanes nichnas. Anyone who wants to come into that house could just walk in. Bein bayom, and here we turn the page. Bein balayla. Any time of the day or the night, somebody could come in. Kiven shiro Yisrael kach. So that was the idea. The idea was, let's break the Jewish spirit by taking away from them their glory. They feel that they're special, that they have some special, unique dignity and refinement, that they have a neshama and a connection to God. Let's take away that kavod and that tznius from them. If we take that from them, then they'll lose their ability to stay separate and to stay. They'll rebel against Hashem because they're losing their sense of humanity. Kivan shiro Yisrael kach. When the Jewish people saw this, amdu bitlu kol dalsais batehem. They couldn't have a door. They got rid of their doors. V'lehayud yicholin lecho v'lelishtais v'lelishamish mitayseim v'shvil ganavim v'listin upritza yevanim. Okay, now I just want to add something. It says they got rid of their doors. I believe that the idea was that if they had to get rid of the door itself, it sounds like they couldn't just have a door that wasn't locked. So now this was totally open, no door on the house. And they suffered so greatly from this. We're going to see in a minute how long this lasted. They couldn't eat and drink. I guess that means that they could eat and drink without a door, right? But they couldn't have that peace of mind that they could have a meal without being disturbed. In privacy. They couldn't have a relationship between a husband and wife. They had no privacy. Why? Because of the ganovim belistim, the robbers, the bandits, and the any Greeks that wanted to come and infiltrate their house, to come. They got no rest, no sleep. For them there was no day, there was no night. There was no just closing the door and resting. Miskayim alei mikra shekasuv, and with them it was fulfilled a pasuk that's written in the Torah, in the Teichacha, Ufacharita laila b'yoma. You will be scared night and day. Amru, they cried out to Hashem, and they said, L'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before the Holy One, blessed be, Ribono shel Olam, Master of the world, Kama anu yicholim lispal. How much could we take already? How much could we endure? Amar lahem. Now this is interesting. Was there nevuah? I don't believe that there was still nevuah in Klal Yisrael 213 years into the second bias. But was it some form of Ruach HaKodesh from the Sanhedrin that they got this message? But the Midrash describes a conversation, as it were, between the Jewish people and between Hashem. And Hashem said, why did this happen? Ba'avoin mezuzah. Because of the sins that were with your mezuzah, with your door. Now, it doesn't go elaborate. I guess the simple reading sounds like they didn't put a mezuzah on their door. Why did they put a mezuzah on their door? I could only speculate. But if I had to speculate, we could guess together. Because they didn't want to be different openly from the Yevanim, from the Gentiles. So to put a sign on your door, this is a Jewish house, they didn't want to do that. But what that led to was much worse. In the end, they didn't have a door at all. And Hashem told them, nonetheless, Revacha timatze b'gezei razu. There will be revacha, like we say in Megillas Esther, revach v'hatzala, right? Revach means you'll have space, you'll have a rest. This gezerah, this decree will end. This continued that the Jewish people had no doors. There's nothing that removes ma'avir ra'os, that removes mishap and evil from the owner, that protects more than a door. A door protects a person. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Leich ami, go my nation, ba b'chadarecha, go into your chambers, usigar dalasecha, and lock your doors ba'adecha, in front of you, because of the dangers from without. Chavi kimat rega, wait just but a moment, hide just but for a rega, ad ya'avar zam, until the wrath passes. And don't give up, this is a pasuk in Yeshaya, that you know that this is only temporary. But here, the concept is that if you have a door that you could lock, then you could just hide for temporarily till the wrath passes, till the danger passes. But here there was no respite, there was no hiding. This lasted for 3 years, like this. Okay, terrible. What we see that the Jewish people went through, but they didn't give up. Their spirit wasn't broken, and they didn't rebel against Hashem. They just cried out, how much can we suffer? How much can we endure? Kivan. Okay, now is the next paragraph. The next step. The Yevanim saw that they weren't making progress here. Now, the truth is that there were many, many Jews that did, were misyavin. They did become influenced by the Greeks and Hellenized. There were. But this gezerah of forcing the Jewish people to let go of their God, of their relationship with their God, because by force, by these decrees called shmad, did not meet success with the masses of the Jewish people. Kivan, I think that we also have to look at this in a context. The context is, if we study what happened in Chanukah, we could study, I don't know if we're going to get to it today, stories of people, Chana and her 7 sons, and people who gave up their life for the name of Hashem. Now, these are tragic, tragic stories, right? And yet, Here we are celebrating Chanukah. But this was a very tragic time for the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, in Al Hanisim, one of the things that we say is Al HaMilchamas ve'Al HaYeshuas. We thank Hashem for the battles. So one interpretation of that I once heard is that wouldn't we have been better off without any battle? It would have been better if we would have just thanked Hashem for the salvation. Who needed the battle? We should thank Him for that. But this was a great turning point for the Jewish people. When we had these battles for the sake of our Jewish identity, for our connection with Hashem, that was something that was a game changer for us. That is maybe one of the greatest things that we got out of it, was that we solidified our commitment, our Mesiras Nefesh to Hashem. That's what we walked away with, strengthened and fortified. That this is something that we're not giving up. There's a famous commentary called the Bach. Bach is short for Bayis Chadash. I don't remember his name, but he lived, I think, around 400 years ago, and this is a commentary on written around the same time as Rabbi Yosef Kara wrote his Beis Yosef, famous, and he writes a beautiful thing about Chanukah, and he says that if you think about what happened, who were the saviors in Chanukah? Who were the Chashmonoim and Yehuda HaMaccabee, the sons of Matisyahu and Yochanan Kohen Gadol? Who were these people? They were Kohanim. Why Kohanim? And what the Bach says is something very beautiful. He says that the Kohanim needed to show that they had a change. They were going to have a change of attitude, because there was a laxity in the service in the Beis Hamikdash that they already had it for 213 years. It was something they would never let go of right away. But what they would do is they would become lax, come late to the Beis Hamikdash, maybe not be with the same enthusiasm, with the same commitment. Basically, just doing it because it fell into their lap. They had it without any struggle. But Hashem says to them, you have to, in order for me to give you this great gift, you have to appreciate it. You have to realize that this isn't just something that anyone has. This is something, a special gift, and you have to cherish it. So their way of cherishing it was that they fought for it with Mesiras Nefesh. And that's something that, a point that's a very important point, that what do we have from Chanukah? The stories of the Mesiras Nefesh were part of the victory. Even though people were killed in cold blood, torture, that's a victory, but it was a victory of the spirit. It was a victory of not giving in to the decrees, to give up our life. Okay, now we're going to start the next paragraph, halfway down the page here. Kivan Shiro Yevanim. Kivan Shiro Yevanim Sh'amdi Yisrael B'Gezerah. When the Greeks saw that the Jewish people withstood this Gezerah, nobody, as a result of this, was stumbled in sin, that he came to worship idols and to leave Hashem. Now they made another decree. Ve'aviru kol, and they made an announcement. Kol Adam Yisrael sheyesh lo sharai seh. Any Jew that has an ox, or a sheep, yechakik al karnav she'in lechelek v'lekei Yisrael. He must engrave on the horn of this goat or this sheep. I don't know if sheep have horns, rams have horns. So that or their ox, that they have no portion with the God of Israel. Their lot is not ein lanu chelek. We don't have a portion belokei Israel with the God of Israel. V'chol kach lama. Why did they make this decree on them? Kedei shelo yochlu Yisrael basar v'lei chalav v'lei gvina. In those days, they didn't have automobiles. What did they have? They had animals. They had oxen. They had sheep. Now, they wouldn't have what to eat. Basar v'lo chalav v'lo gvina, no meat, no cheese, no milk. V'lo yeh lam charisha, they wouldn't be able to farm with the plowing. And it says elsewhere also, transportation. We're going to see in a second that they didn't have. Amru, the Greeks said, Yodim anu, we know, she'en yichalam lamud b'gzeirazu. The Jewish people cannot withstand this decree. That's what they said. It's impossible for them to withstand this decree. Now, so, again, this wasn't just a rule. This was punishable. Doesn't say, I think it was punishable by death if you don't follow this rule. So, they had no choice. What are they going to do? If they don't write on their shor, on their sheep, that they're going to be on their shor, there's an ox, or on their sheep, if they don't write that we have no portion with God of Israel, then they'll be killed. If they do write it, so now they just denounced their whole heritage openly. Now, why the ox and why the sheep? So we just saw, but there's more depth to it, and there's a commentary here that I believe it says on the bottom. Okay, you know what? I think that we'll see in a minute further in the text. Why, was there some sin that the Jewish people did that Hashem caused them to be vulnerable in this area? So let's continue, and we'll see what's going on. So it says, when the Jewish people heard this decree, they had a terrible pain. What were they pained? They said, we're worried. Heaven forbid that we should come to denounce our God. They went and they sold their animals. So they got out of it. They didn't have any animals. They sold them. Kosher and not kosher animals they sold. And they were walking by foot. And with them was fulfilled the pasuk. The pasuk says that the servants, the people who should, those who were, this is referring to the Greeks, it's calling them avadim. They were riding on horses, and but the Jews were not riding. They had to walk on their feet. Amar lehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem said, why did this happen to you? V'avayin shemanatem atzmechem me'alois b'shalosh regalim liyushalayim l'hagiv karbanos v'litein matanos gehuna. What did you do wrong here? You didn't go to the Beis HaMikdash 3 times a year to the festivals, to Yerushalayim, to go up with your feet. So this is what's happening, that your feet are becoming weary. You didn't go to offer the sacrifices with the sheep and with the ox. That's why you lost them. You didn't give the gifts to the Kohanim they were supposed to be giving. That's why it's been fulfilled on you, the pasuk, your oxen have been slaughtered in front of your eyes. He said, it's from me. It's not from coincidence. It's not just an evil decree from the nations. It's not some wicked Gentile that decided to do this and you're vulnerable to his whim. Hashem says this is something which you're getting a kapara for, you're learning a lesson for. It's going to help you do tshuva because of what you did wrong in this area. And it says like this. The second line now, on the page 95, for this gezerah as well you will have respite. Here they had a miracle. They experienced the tzivayim, the tzvi is a deer. Vayalim is a gazelle. These are animals that live in the forests. v'chol minei ofos, and all types of birds, teharim, that were kosher birds. Va'im v'nichnasim libateim shel Yisrael. They came into the doorway of the Jewish people. They just flew right in, or walked right in. Levisha hayu b'loi dalses, because there were no doors. Uvayin Yisrael v'taipsin osan, and the Jewish people would capture them. V'shochtin v'ochlin basar, they had meat that they could shecht and they could eat it. V'nosnin shevach l'kodesh baruch hu, and they gave praise to Hashem, and they said, V'amru, Baruch Hu, blessed is the one, Shahapach atzas oivenu l'tova, that turned the eitzah, the idea, the plot of our enemies for the good. How? She'ilu hayu dalses l'batim, if we had doors on our houses, on our homes, how would all of these food, these animals that were trapped, how would they come into us? So they thanked Hashem for doing this for them, that showing them a sign that the first decree was what enabled them to be saved from the second decree, and they had what to eat. Hashem responded to the thanks of the Jewish people. Atem chastem al kivodi, v'loi kafartem bi. You cared about my glory, and you did not rebel and denounce my being. Afani zemanti lachem seder. I also took care of you and prepared this seder for you, the meat that was trapped. So again, Hashem's showing them a beautiful sign of how this is what I want from you, and you're doing the right thing. You're not giving in to the decree. Atem chastem al kivaidi v'lo kafartem bi. Okay. So now, apparently, what we see here is that there was an overlap. In other words, even though we saw that there was 3 years, one decree, and then another one, when they saw the first one wasn't working, but there was an overlap because the doors they still weren't allowed to have. And now we proceed in the story, and we see another gezerah, another terrible gezerah. Okay, once again, this isn't the entire story. If you read a history book, you're going to see a lot that happened before this. You're going to see a lot that happened after this. But it's giving us a perspective from the Midrash of some of what was going on here between the Jewish people and Hashem and the gezerahs, the decrees that the Greeks were putting on them. They were withstanding this decree. Amdu v'gazru. They went and they made a decree. Kol mi she'ishta holeches l'tfila yidaker b'cheref. Anyone whose wife goes to the mikvah will be stabbed by a sword. V'chol haroeh oisa, and anyone who witnesses that she's going, catches her going to the mikvah, harei hi lo le'isha, he could keep her as a wife. Uvanel, and her children, la'avadim, to be slaves. Kivan shiro Yisrael, that was the official rule that the Greeks made. Kivan shiro Yisrael kach, when the Jewish people saw this, so the women couldn't go to the mikvah, manu atzma milashamish, so they had to separate from their wives. They couldn't be together. V'kivan sheshamu yivanim kach, when the Greeks heard this, they said, Hayo amru, hayo vein Yisrael meshamshin mitayseyem, anu niskakin lahem. If the male Jews, the men are not going to be with their wives, we are going to go and attract these women to come to us. Kivan shiro Yisrael kach, when the Jewish people saw this, chazru al nishayan b'loi tevila ba'al karchan. They went back to have marital relations with their wives while they were not tar, without going to the mikvah. Amru, and Ba'al Karchan was against their will. Amru, they said, Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, Ba'al Karchenu shaloi b'tavosenu. We're doing this. We don't want to do this. We're forced to do this. She'ena isha rotza leishev tachas ba'ala b'loi einasa. Because our wives were worried that they're not going to stay with us if we don't give them their own nasa, if we don't give them this attention, this mitzvah, that being together with them, then they're going to leave us. Amar lem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said to them, Ho'il v'asisem b'loi kavana, since you did it not for your own pleasure, not because you want to do it. You're not doing this because it's too hard for you to withstand that you don't have a wife to be with. For yourself, you would have separated. But now that they're going to fall into the hands of the Yavanim, so then, Ani atahir eschem, I will purify you. And he made a miracle. Pasach l'chol echad ve'echad mehen mayon b'toich beisai. He made for each and every one a stream. A mayon is a spring within their house. Vayunishayim tovlos b'toich batehem. And their wives could go in the house with no one seeing, no one to catch them. They could go in the privacy of their own home to the mikvah. V'yiskayim alei mikvah zeh. And was fulfilled with them this joyous pasuk. U'sh'aftem mayim b'sasain. And you will draw water with joy. Mimayni ha'yeshua, from the springs of salvation. V'yiskayim aleim od mikvah zeh. And another pasuk was fulfilled with them. In rachat Hashem, if Hashem will wash as tzoas b'nois tzion, the filth of the daughters of Israel, to remove. Hashem said, look, you can't do it. I will bring you a miraculous way to remove the tumah, that you could live together with tahara and purity. So, again, their decree was foiled. So what happened now? This was very joyous for the Jewish people, that Hashem gave them a salvation. When the Greeks saw that they weren't even being margish. Margish means to feel. When you're margish, you feel something. They weren't feeling their decrees, as if it didn't make a dent. They weren't being broken by them. This time, after all the three previous decrees, they made a decree that is bitter and dark. That a bride on the first night of her marriage should not enter from underneath her chuppah ela etzel hegman. She has to go straight to the hegman, to the Greek general that was in charge of their place. Shebemakom that was in that town. The officer that was in charge of that province. They had different leaders in different areas. Kivan sheshamu Yisrael. Now no one could get married unless they were defiled first by the Yavanim. Now again, this was to break their spirit, but part of what they wanted to do is they wanted to be mitame them. They wanted to show them that what you consider about us that is impure, the Greeks, they, in their philosophy, their lifestyle, their culture, this was for somebody to flaunt their body and to focus on the olam hazeh, what they see in this world, and their pursuit of strength, of might, and so on. That was the peak of perfection, the perfection of the human being. But the Jewish people considered this, that it's the opposite. What you're focusing on is taking away the focus from what you're really here for. You're really here for is that your guf, together with your neshama, has a special kedusha, a special tahara relationship with Hashem. But if you just forget about the neshama, just take the body, and no mikvah, and no purity, then or a kala that has to be defiled on the night of her wedding, they wanted to infiltrate, that they should feel that you can't preserve this tahara, you can't keep the Jewish purity that you feel so special about you. So they thought they could take this away. Kivan sheshama Yisrael kach, when the Jewish people heard this, now on the fourth line, Rafu Yedeyhem, they felt weak. Their hands were softened. V'tashash kocham, and their strength was weakened. V'nimnu mil ares, and they had no choice. They stopped making marriages. Vayu benos Yisrael, boigres. The daughters of the Israel were getting older. Umaskinas. They were becoming mature of age and getting old. Kishem besulais. While they were still virgins, they didn't get married. Meniskayim aleim besulaisel nugais v'hi marla. That the daughters of Israel are in pain, and it's bitter for her. And the Yevanim, the Greeks, would poke fun and jest and torment these Jewish girls. This went on for 3 years and 8 months, until the following famous story happened. There's slight variations. You may have heard this story with a little bit different variation of this story. The daughter, according to this story, she was the daughter of the Kohen Gadol. Shenise is the Ben Chashmainai, and she was marrying the son of Chashmainai, the Eliezer Hayashimo. So there was two families. Matisyahu was the Kohen Gadol, his father was Yochanan, and his daughter was marrying another family of Kohanim, the family called the Chashmainaim, and his son was Eliezer. Kivan shehikia Yom Simchasa, when the day of the celebration came, Hashivua ba'apirya, they put her in an apirya. I think it was a type of canopy or chariot that they're bringing her, and with bringing her to her chuppah. When the time of the meal came, Niskabtu kol gedolei Yisrael, all the great people of Israel came to honor Matisyahu ben Chashmainai. Shalahayu ba'isa dar gedolim mehem. They were the greatest of the generation, and everyone came to honor them. Yashvu liside, when they sat to have a chasana meal, everyone sitting, and the band is playing the dinner music, so peaceful. All of a sudden it was all shattered. Amda Chana, the Kala, her name was Chana, Bas Matisyahu, the daughter of Matisyahu, got up, Mi'ala Piryan, from her special Kala chair, Visavka Kapel, and she clapped her hands, Zu al Zu, with a big bang, Vikara Porpirain Shala, and she ripped some special garment or gown that she was wearing. For Amda Lifnei Kol Yisrael, and she stood in front of everyone, all the great people of Israel, Kashi Megula, when she was uncovered. Lifnei Aviyah, in front of her father, the Ima and her mother, the Chaisna and her Chasan, and disgraced. It was a disgrace to everyone there, and everyone was aghast. Kivan sheroach el kach, when her brothers saw this, nizbaishu, they were embarrassed. V'nasnu pneim bekarka, they looked to the ground. V'karu bigdayim, they ripped their clothing. V'amdu alel harga, and they came to her that she should be killed for disgracing the purity of a daughter of the Kahuna. Amr lahem, she said to them, Shimu'uni, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Shim'aini, Shim'ain, my brother. Achi, V'daidi, my brother. One second, maybe this might be three different people. Shim'aini, her husband's name was Eliezer, so not the husband. Okay, so it must have been her brother. Okay. Oh, no. Okay, we got it. Without Nakudais, there's a lot of options for how to read the words. Okay? Shima'uni, Achai V'daidi. My brothers and my friends. Uma b'shvil, listen to me. The following logic. Listen to my plea. Uma b'shvil shamadati lifnei tzadikim aruma. How much, if for standing, that I stood in front of righteous men when I was naked, b'li shum aveira, without doing any sin, committing any sin, that she didn't actually go and she do anything, she was just undressed. Hare atem miskanim bi, and still you are zealous, and you have kanoas, they are zealous against me. Ve'ein atem miskanim l'masreini biad orel, but you're not standing up from before sending me into the hands of this uncircumcised Greek Hegmoin, Lis'albi, to torment me. You should learn, my brothers, you should learn a lesson from the Torah. Shimon v'Levi, Achei Dina. Look what the brothers of Dina did, Shimon and Levi. Shleihayu el Shnayim. There were only two brothers, two of them. And they stood up for the honor of their sister to rescue her. V'kinu la'chaisam, v'hargu krach k'Shchem. And they stood up and they killed the whole city like Shchem to restore the honor of their sister. U'masu nafsham al yichud shal makan. And what did they do? They were moser nefesh. They gave up their life for the belief in Hashem. And Hashem helped them and didn't let them down. He didn't embarrass them. Atem, and you, chamisha achim, you 5 brothers, Yehuda. These are the sons of Yochanan, right? That's what it appears, because she was their sister, sons of Matisyahu, ben Yochanan. Chamisha achim, your 5 brothers, Yehuda, Yochanan, Yonasan, Shimon, Eliezer, Upirchei Kuhuna, and together there are also other young Kohanim here. Yoitzer mimasayim bacho, more than 200 men. So they only had 2 men, Shimon and Levi, and you had more than 200. Simu b'tchaynachem al hamakayim, put your trust in Hashem. Hu ya'azor eschem, and He will help you. Shenemar ki in matar Hashem, there is nothing holding back Hashem, Vaishia, from saving. And she started to cry. And this time she's not talking to them, she's talking to Hashem. And she says, Master of the universe, if you don't have mercy on us, on our sorrow, fate, have mercy al kedusha shemecha, on the glory of the holiness of your name, Hagadol, your great name, shenikra aleinu, that is called on us, that we represent as a Jewish people, v'naka mayayim nikmasenu, and take nikama, take revenge for us. So here you see that how she stood up and she showed them in a very powerful way what they didn't see, what they failed to see, that there was a strength that they could muster up, and they had to. And if the same way that they were angered when it was all of a sudden that they were ready to kill their sister, their kanos came out to preserve the holiness of Hashem in that way. But what about to fight against the Greeks? Because the answer is, it was impossible. It was humanly impossible, unfathomable, to go wage a war against the Greek armies. But nevertheless, she inspired them to do so with one thing and one thing only, and that was trust in Hashem. And He will help you, because there's no limit to what He can do. And before I continue, I just want to check what time it is.
Who was she?
2 more minutes.
Hannah?
This was Hannah, the daughter of Matisyahu.
Is another Hannah.
Yeah,
Hannah.
different Hannah.
Yeah, that's right.
Good name.
It doesn't say no. It doesn't say that she's the one with the 7 children.
No.
It doesn't say that.
Okay. So Hannah is the sister of Matisyahu.
Yes, she's the daughter of Matisyahu.
Daughter of
Daughter.
So Aisha Shah, at that time, Niskanu Achia, her brothers got up to take revenge. V'amru, ba'u natol eitza, manase. Let's make a plan. Nadu eitza zemizeh. They thought and they came up with a plan, with a battle tactic. V'amru, ba'u v'nikach achaysenu. We'll take our sister and we'll proceed as if this is going to continue. That we're taking her to the Hegmon after her marriage, straight from her chuppah. We'll go take our sister, and we will bring her Eitzel HaMelech HaGadol in front of the great king. So maybe they decided not just go to the local ruler, but to the greater one, in charge of all of the lands of Israel. Our sister, Bas Kohen Gadol. She's the daughter of the Kohen Gadol, Matisyahu. And no one is greater than her father, than our father. It's not fitting and honorable that she should go to sleep by the Hegmon, by the local governor. With the king, that's also great like us. We want to honor that there should be a right shidduch here between the king and the daughter of the Kohen Gadol. And when they got there, nasnu alav, we will enter into him, v'nargeyu, we'll kill him, v'neitzeh. And then from there we'll start, v'avadav, with his servants, v'sarav, and with his officers. Hashem yazreinu v'yiskevenu. Hashem will help us and lift us up. Nadu Eitzah, they sought each other's counsel and they went how to do this. And Hashem made for them a great salvation. Vishamu, and they heard. Now this is like the beginning of their battles. This is the first. Vishamu baskol mi beis kodesh hakadoshim. And when they were successful in this endeavor, they heard a baskol, a heavenly voice, come out from the Holy of Holies, and it said, Kol Yisrael, the entire Jewish people, Natzchu Kuli Talia, which Ve'antuchya, which in the parentheses it says that my children, Chashmoinoi, who are the youth of the Kohanim, they have been victorious over Antuchya, over the kingdom of Antiochus. So Hashem should make a salvation for us in these days. And that's the end of the Midrash. That they got a baskol that went out and said that Hashem's going to that they were already victorious. And it's an interesting thing that we had recent parsha with Esau, that before Yaakov and Esau met, Yaakov met the malach of Esau, and he struggled with the angel of Esau, and right until the morning, and he hit him on his hip was hurt, and so on. But when Yaakov was victorious, so to speak, in the heavenly realm with the malach, then he saw success in his battle, in his encounter with Esau. So here they had Hashem told them that their Mesiras Nefesh and their kinna, this standing up, this was something that was merited, that they were as if they were already successful and defeated Antuchya, even though it was just the beginning of the battles. So we're not going to get a chance to go into look at some of the meaning of the paragraphs of Tehillim like I thought that. I wasn't sure how long this part was going to take, but we did finish something concrete over here. We had a very great appreciation, and it's a time for us to make a chizuk in Chanukah, to make some strengthening of, we're not just observing or keeping because it's easy. This is something that we're committed, that we're willing to give up our life and give up our comfort, and even when it's not easy, to go out of our comfort zone to serve Hashem and to show that this is something that is worth dying for, and then it's worth living for.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful Chanukah.
Thank you.